Hello my loves, welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video where we will once again be reflecting on 2023 a little bit. I want to look back at all of the books I have read this year, so we are going to be tier ranking every single book that I read in 2023. So firstly, I just want to say I'm aware that the glare on my glasses is probably incredibly annoying. I'm going to be looking over here for most of the video, so it shouldn't be too bad in a minute once we get into it. I started making videos, I can't remember when in the year, sort of midpoint through the year. So some of these books I will have talked about and have some kind of review and thoughts on. Others I won't have. So if you do want to see like more detailed thoughts on some of these books, some of them will have been in previous wrap-ups or I might have done standalone videos on them. If there are any you would like to know more about and you would like a dedicated review on them, please do let me know because I'm more than happy to do that if I remember the book well enough. Yeah, let's just get started. Here are all of the books that I have read this year. There's not a huge amount. I read, I think it was like 42 books this year, and I'm gonna be honest, some of these I don't remember very well. But we're just gonna go through them and rank them from Six of Crows, which is best of the best. Pretty good, but you know, not Six of Crows. Okay, but not great. Meh, and just would not recommend. I feel like I am generous enough that there's not going to be that many in the would not recommend, but I know there were already a few that are definitely going to end up there. I think the way this has worked out is actually sort of the order I read them for in the year. So the first few I'm probably not going to remember as well as the rest of them. The first one, the Ex-Hex, I definitely don't remember very well. I remember this being quite easy to read. It was autumnal, witchy, obviously. It was, my initial feelings that it was okay but not great. The Mad Woman's Ball I've actually talked about recently because I do really like this book. Now, I did say it was one of my favourite books of all time in one of my videos, but I think having read more this year I probably would revise that, so it's not quite gonna go into Six of Crows category, but it is still pretty good. It's very nearly there, but not quite. If you want to hear me talk more about this book, I literally did it in my most recent video, so I'm not gonna go on about it again, because that would just be excessive, but I'm feeling good with pretty good there, and some of these might have to be revised as we go through. Crooked Kingdom, I'm really on the fence about, because I really enjoyed Crooked Kingdom. I really, really did. It was a really good book. As you know, it's in the Six of Crows sphere, so of course it was going to be good, but my gut is telling me it wasn't quite Six of Crows, but it just feels wrong to not put it in that category, because I know I didn't rate it the same as Six of Crows. For now, no, actually, do you know what, I've just remembered a specific part of it, and that's made me want to put it in there. So for now, Crooked Kingdom is going in Six of Crows. That might change. We will see how we feel. Now we get on to the bit that I was kind of dreading, which is all the Cawthorne and Roses books. So I read all of these in, I want to say like February or March of last year, and I will give it to these books. These are the books that got me back into reading, really, because they were easy to read. I got through them, and it was just that motivation to start reading again. But looking back now, they are definitely not as good as I thought they were at the time. So it's also going to be really hard for me to differentiate them and remember which one is what. So I remember A Court of Thorn and Roses pretty well. Obviously that's the first one. Oh god, this is going to be really hard to rate. So A Court of Thorn and Roses was one of the stronger books in the series, I think. I kind of saw what was happening coming, but I know a lot of other people didn't. So my initial thought is okay but not great. I kind of almost wish there was a level between pretty good and okay but not great, because it wasn't pretty good, but it feels like it was, in comparison to the other books, it feels better than okay but not great. But I'm gonna leave that there for now. A Court of Mist and Fury was definitely better. I think it was the strongest book in the series. I still don't know if I'd feel good putting it in pretty good though. That's with that book, which I absolutely love. We'll come back to that one. Frost and Starlight was the really short one, I think, which I'm just gonna put straight in meh. I don't really remember what happened in that one. I also don't really remember what happened in this one, but I feel like I remember it being a bit of a slog to get through, so we're also putting that in meh. Court of Silver Flames. I know a lot of people didn't really enjoy this book very much, but Ness was probably one of my favourite characters in that series. So having a whole book focused on her, I actually quite enjoyed, personally. So I think the thing that's holding me back with these is that none of them are great. And I'm looking back now, I can see that none of them are that great, which is making me reluctant to put any of them in pretty good. But there does need to be some differentiation between them. I think I'm gonna put Mist and Fury in okay but not great as well. It doesn't feel right to put it in pretty good. None of those books were pretty good. They were easy to read and they got me out of a slump, but honestly, I don't know that I'd really necessarily recommend them that much to other people, if you know what I mean. They're not awful, but they're not great. So okay, but not great, I think is decent for them. Now the Satsuma Complex I'm also quite conflicted on, mainly because the book itself, it was funny, it was very Bob, it had things that I, definitely could tell were related to his actual life, but I don't know that it was actually that great, honestly. It was good because I like Bob Mortimer, which I think is swaying my view of it a little bit. I've cheated and I've made Bob Mortimer his own category. And the Satsuma Complex is just going to go in there because fundamentally I think if Bob Mortimer hadn't written it, I wouldn't have enjoyed it. But I think because I know his humour style and I could imagine him saying some of the things, and if you just bought that book not knowing who Bob Mortimer was, you would probably think this dialogue is really awkward, these characters are weird and don't feel very natural. But if you know Bob Mortimer, you know that actually you can imagine him saying those things and it makes it quite funny. So I have made him his own category because I can't read it otherwise. Now, Rule of Wolves and King of Scars, I struggled to get through these books, to be honest. I know that I've said that I love Leigh Bardugo and she's, probably my favourite author, and I've never disliked one of her books, and I stand by that. But King of Scars and Rule of Wolves I did really struggle to get through, and I think that's mainly because of how politics heavy they were. Not that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it just wasn't... It just made it feel more difficult to read for me. King of Scars, I think I struggled with more than Rule of Wolves. So I have to say I'm going to put King of Scars in okay but not great, which is really not something I thought I'd be doing, putting a Leigh Bardugo book in there. And then Rule of Wolves was better. I enjoyed Rule of Wolves more, so I'm going to put that in pretty good. They were still neither of them on the level of Six of Crows, definitely not. And they are probably my least favourite of Leigh's books. Not that they're bad or that I didn't like them, they're just sort of bottom of the list of her books for me. Not ones I'd probably reread, whereas most of the others I probably would reread. So yeah, it just having Leigh in okay but not great feels wrong, but I feel like I can't put anything else in Bob Mortimer apart from Bob Mortimer. So. Oh, Ambrosia and Frost, right. These are both from a series. They're just, I think they're on Kindle Unlimited. They're Fae books. And I specifically read these after Rule of Wolves and King of Scars because I needed something easy to read and not particularly like challenging or... No, I'm not going to say what I was about to say because that's really rude. These books were what I needed at the time, but I wouldn't say they were particularly amazing or great. I honestly, quite easy, I'm going to put both of these in meh. To be honest, I probably wouldn't really recommend them, but they're not to the level of I would say they're bad, or I would encourage people not to read them, if you know what I mean. If that's your kind of thing, then you would probably like them. To be honest, if you like A Court of Thorn and Roses and all of those books, you would probably like those books. I just personally, they were what I needed at the time, but I wouldn't read them again or sort of continue into that sphere. Oh, The Love Hypothesis. Do you know what? I know Ali Hazelwood is a very divisive person, and her books are a bit more, people have very differing opinions on them. I actually quite enjoy them, and I think partly that is because they are easy to read, and I can see that there are problems with some of them, and I do find the main characters in them to be very YN, but I can't help but enjoy them a little bit. So my thoughts is it's not pretty good. The Love Hypothesis, I've only read 2 Ali Hazelwood books, but The Love Hypothesis, I did find the characters more annoying than the other one I read. So I think that you're going to go in okay but not great. It's looking very disproportionate at the moment where everything is going. In the okay but not great range. And I hate to say it, but I think the next book is going to go in there as well. So the first grimoire I was really excited about reading actually, and it just fell a little bit flat for me. This isn't one I've particularly talked about on this channel, I don't think, but it was a really interesting concept and premise, but completely honestly, it felt like it needed more editing, and that kind of took out of the story and the enjoyment of it a little bit more. So I know there is going to be a second one, and I will read that because by the end of it I did like the characters and I was interested to see where the story went, but I don't think I can put it any higher than okay but not great. Now we come to my boys, the Raven boys. Okay, so this I think is actually going to be pretty easy. So the first book, The Raven Boys, easily going up into Six of Crows. It was fantastic. I've also just talked about this book in my most recent video, so if you want more details on why I liked it and, you know, a bit about what the book's about, go and watch that. But the rest of the books in the series, it's a little bit harder to rate. The Dream Thieves was really good. I think that the Dream Thieves was probably my second favourite after the Raven Boys. So I think that's firmly going in pretty good. Not quite Six of Crows, but quite comfortably pretty good. Blue Lily, Lily Blue was I think my least favourite. And I didn't really understand what was happening a lot of the time in it. And it just felt, I think it fell victim to the sort of middle book syndrome that a lot of series have, where the middle book it's necessary but it's not the most thrilling or engaging like the rest of them are. You know, it's not like the first one where everything's getting set up and you're getting used to everything, and it's not like the last one where everything's wrapping up and there's action happening. So I feel like that one floundered a little bit. So honestly, so there is some differentiation. I'm going to put it in okay but not great. I rated all 3 of the other books in the series, so aside from the first one, The Raven Boys, I rated all 3 of these exactly the same. So they were all really good and I enjoyed them all, but that is kind of why I wanted to do this tier list, because I think ratings don't always capture fully what you mean when you are reviewing a book. So yeah, I think we're going to put that one there. And then The Raven King, I mean, I'm going to be honest, the ending disappointed me, but it was still good. So I think that can go in pretty good as well. Yeah. I think the ending was, in my opinion, disappointing, but it wasn't so disappointing that it would bump it down. So all in all, a fantastic series and would really recommend. Oliver Twist. Ugh. I think I did talk about this book in a wrap up. I'm pretty sure I did. I'm going to do a whole video on it at some point. I don't know how to feel about this book anymore because first time I hated it. Did not like it. I think I rated it 2 stars. Then I started rereading it for a video that I was going to do, and I found myself enjoying it a little bit more, noticing things about it that I hadn't noticed the first time. Admittedly, I only read 2 chapters of it, but I think this one's hard because I need to give it another chance, really. If we're just going on my initial thoughts of it, this is really hard because the actual book itself, I really was not a fan of, but Oliver holds such a dear place in my heart. It's such a massive special interest of mine when I was a teenager, and the film, the 1968 film, is just one of my favourite films of all time. So it's really hard to separate those feelings from the actual book, because those feelings are making me want to put it in okay but not great. But I think if we're really basing it just on the actual book itself and what I thought about it when I read it, I think we're going to have to put it in meh, because it feels wrong to put a 2-star book any higher than that. But who knows, I may reread it this year. So when we tier list, you know, in 2025, all the books that I read in 2024, maybe this will have changed, who knows. Love on the Brain. This, another Ali Hazelwood book. I enjoyed this more than The Love Hypothesis. The characters were less annoying. I don't really remember the plot too much. Oh, I vaguely remember it. The twist was shit. But again, it was that nice, easy to read that you get with Ali Hazelwood. It was a bit better, but honestly, it still goes in okay, but not great. And I think that's what you can expect with those books. They are easy to read. You'll get through it quite quickly. Yeah, you might get a bit annoyed with the YN main character at times and their really immature friends and the really unrealistic situations that the love interests find themselves in. But they are easy to read, and you can't help but get into it a little bit. So it is slightly above this one, but not by much. Deal with the Elf King. I immediately know this is going in meh. While we're at it, where's the other one? This one, Duel with the Vampire Lord, both written by the same author. These are both very meh for me. I am going to read more in these series just because I do like, you know, reading about various different fantasy characters, fantasy creatures. So we'll try the others in the series, but I think both of those books for me, I had high expectations of them and was quite excited about standalone fantasy stories because I personally find long fantasy series quite overwhelming as an idea to get into. So I quite liked the idea of the standalone ones, but both of them have just been a bit disappointing to me, honestly. And I don't know if that's because they're trying to have, you know, a fully fleshed out world and characters and lore and backstory and all of that in one book, which is really hard to do, especially because they're not the longest books really either, or if it's just something else. But yeah, both of them felt very meh to me, unfortunately. I know there are a lot of people who love those books, so you know, you might like them. But yeah, for me, just kind of disappointing. A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon. Oh, where do I put this? This book was okay. There were some parts of it that were quite funny. It was a bit silly, which I don't mind in a book at all. I don't mind a bit of silliness. The resolve and the conflict was just irritating to me. I'm struggling on okay but not great or meh. I think meh might be a bit unfair. No, is it? I'm so conflicted. Oh my god, my hand is a completely different colour to my face. My hand looks so much more like warm toned. Anyway, yeah, I'm really conflicted on this one because I feel like I liked it more towards the beginning, and then as I kept reading and you know, sort of story elements were developing, I just got progressively more annoyed with it. So for now, I think I'm gonna stick it in okay but not great. That may change. We may come back to that and review that when we do sort of a final look over them. But yeah, I'm just going to stick it in there for now. Ninth House, we immediately know where this is going. This is going up with Six of Crows. Easy. No competition, no questions asked. I mentioned Ninth House in my most recent video as well, my 5-star books of the year video. So go and watch that if you want to know more of my thoughts and why that's there, because yeah, it's pointless for me to explain it again when I've literally just done that. And then Picture of Dorian Gray, going straight in Six of Crows as well. Easy. That is hands down one of my favourite books of all time, and became it as soon as I was reading it. So not to repeat myself, but I mentioned it in my last video. So oh, okay, Belladonna. Belladonna I loved when I read it. I really loved it. I think I might have read this before I started making videos, so I don't know if I did talk about this or not. I might have done, I don't remember. It was so up my street. It was gothic. There was death in it. Death is in the character, not just people dying, but people were also dying. There was mystery. There was hints of the occult. It was a really good book, just ticked all of my boxes. I don't think it quite got to 5 stars. I think there were some things that maybe held it back. Actually, no, comparing what else is in pretty good, I think that's fair for Belladonna. It was really good, and I would really recommend it in particular. Yeah, no, it's definitely not Six of Crows, no. Hellbent. Initial Instinct Hellbent is pretty good. I didn't enjoy it quite as much as Ninth House. I still really enjoyed it. It was still really good, don't get me wrong, but it didn't hold me quite as much as Ninth House did. And that might just be the thing of it, Ninth House being the first book in the series, and you know, that's the one that hooks you in and gets you interested, so it might just be because of that. But yeah, I think Hellbent, more on the pretty good side. It was still great. Oh, Summer Unplugged is our first would not recommend. I have talked about this book in a wrap up. I read this in one of the summer months, I don't remember which one, and I would just like to be really clear that this book just, it wasn't for me, in the sense of it clearly wasn't written for people like me, and by that I mean people of my age. I didn't realize when I got this, and until I started reading it, this is very clearly a teenage book. If I think back to when I was a teenager, probably quite similar, in all fairness, to the type of things that I would have written, like story-wise, that I would have written as a teenager. If that's what a teenager's writing, then, you know, probably teenagers are gonna like it, but that was just not for me. I'm too old, so I wouldn't recommend it personally. There are probably some people out there that like it. Oh, okay, the Serpent and the Wings of Night series. I am a bit on the fence about this because I feel like I enjoyed both of these books at the time. They were a bit, especially the second one, I think I struggled to get through a little bit more. Looking back, I'm not sure if they're as great as I thought they were at the time, but that would be difficult without a reread to really to really comment on. I almost would, I'm not going to because it would be wrong. I would be tempted to put The Serpent and the Wings of Night in Bob Mortimer because it was slightly better than okay but not great, but I don't think it was quite pretty good. I did not enjoy it as much as any of these books in here, definitely not. So it doesn't really feel right to be in there, but I feel like I did enjoy it more than a few of these books. Not all of them, but a few of them. I suppose in that case then, okay but not great. And The Ashes and the Circus King I think would be the same. They felt very similar to me, but that might be because I read them quite close together. But I do remember sort of maybe just falling off the... Oh no, I've just remembered the end of The Serpent and the Wings of Night. Oh, that shocked me actually, yeah. No, that was good. I still think it's just okay but not great. I don't think that would push it up any higher. They were, of the like modern day vampire books that I've read, some of the better ones. I haven't really found many modern interpretations of vampires that I've really enjoyed. These were better, but they still, I don't know, they just, again, I think my expectations when I come to vampire books are always too high, and modern interpretations of vampires just never live up to what I want. I want the traditional gothic old school vampire, which we, you know, I just don't think we tend to get. And Away, we know where this is going. Oh, I've not got enough room. And Away is definitely with Six of Crows. It feels kind of weird having Bob there and not in his own category. But yeah, And Away was amazing. It was fantastic. Very comforting to read and listen to. Foxglove, which is the second book after Belladonna. Oh, this book let me down. This book really let me down. I was so disappointed by this book. I mean, especially after how much I really enjoyed Belladonna, I was so looking forward to this book. I'd pre-ordered it, and then I was reading it and I was just like, what's happening? Like, what's wrong? What am I missing? Because just something isn't right here. And it just was not as good. Death wasn't in it enough. There wasn't enough mystery. The main like other character that's brought into it I hated. It really disappointed me, and I was actually really upset sort of finishing and reading this book because I was just expecting so much more from it. There is going to be a third one in the series, which I will still read because I'm hoping it will be good. But Foxglove, I think, honestly, oh god, am I gonna put it in meh? Oh, see the thing is, I think the reason I'm putting it in meh is because I loved Belladonna so much and I was expecting so much more from Foxglove than I got. I think on its own, it wasn't actually that bad. I think just in comparison to the first one and my feelings towards the first one, it makes it seem so much more disappointing than it would have been if that was just a standalone book. But I think I'm gonna have to put it in meh, which is really sad. The next book, The London Seance Society, is another one that I was very disappointed by, and I think I read both of these, Foxglove and this one back to back, so it was just a time of being generally very disappointed by books, if I remember correctly. So the reason I was disappointed with this one was because I had already read another book by the same author called The Lost Apothecary, and I loved The Lost Apothecary. That was a really good book, and so I was really looking forward to this one because it was similar, historic fiction. It included seances and ghosts and stuff like that, so I was really excited, and it was just not great. This should be great. I should be loving this. It's Victorian, Gothic, Sapphic. I should be loving it, and I was not. So I was incredibly disappointed with this book, and it is also going in meh for that reason.
How can you do this to me? You got my hopes up so high and then you mugged and shot them in an alleyway.
Ugh, okay, Dracula is next, and Dracula is a book that I've been thinking over recently. I don't really know why, but it's a book that I think I actually enjoyed more than I thought I did. It definitely was good, and I didn't rate it badly, but I think it's left such an impression on me. I think that's the main thing. And my head is telling me to put it in Six of Crows, even though I did not rate it as well as those other books. But the more I think about it, the more I think it deserves it. I don't remember a book that I've read recently that has drawn me in as much as Dracula did, and that made me feel so passionately about a book. I'm gonna put it in Six of Crows. I just really liked Dracula. It was a really good book. We'll keep it there for now. We might change this. I'm gonna review at the end and we might change. The Secret History is a difficult one for me. I've made a whole video on specifically just The Secret History. So if you want to know all of my thoughts on The Secret History, go and watch that. But I still feel quite conflicted about that book too, because I know that I liked it, but also that I found it a bit boring, and also that I didn't really like the characters, but also you're not supposed to like the characters. So I'm incredibly on the fence about it. I think it would be unfair to put it in okay but not great. Honestly, I think that would be unfair. So I think I'm gonna put it in pretty good. I think I definitely enjoyed it more than these books in okay but not great. Yeah. Secret History can stay there. Okay, Between the Vines is a would not recommend. I did talk about this as well in a wrap up, but I don't remember which one it was. This was a huge letdown. I was again quite excited about this because it was essentially Marvel fan fiction, and I don't have a problem with fan fiction being turned into books personally. But I mean, it was just not very good. The tenses randomly changing, things feeling very abrupt in sentence structure, dialogue feeling awkward. Everyone felt like a teenager even though they're supposed to be like, what, in their 30s. It just, I wouldn't really recommend it at all, to be honest. There might be some people, I mean, there are some people out there that like it, you know, and we all have different tastes. You can like what you like. Just because I didn't like it doesn't mean you're not gonna like it. But for me personally, I would not recommend that book at all. If We're Villains isn't even a question of where that's going. That's definitely going in Six of Crows. This is the final time, I promise, but I talked about If We Were Villains in my most recent video as well. So if you want to see my full thoughts on why that's there, put that there. But I think If We Were Villains has quickly become one of my favourite books of all time as well. So it's definitely on level with Six of Crows, 100%. Portrait of a Thief, my gut instinct is meh, honestly. It feels a bit harsh because it wasn't awful, but I really had to force myself to read it. I found the characters, multiple characters in there, I found the characters very hard to differentiate between, and I found the writing a bit repetitive at times, and I found the general plot solution quite unrealistic. And a lot of people in their reviews have said, like, just suspend your belief in like how realistic these things could be to enjoy it, which I do think you need to do to an extent. And I did that for most of the book, like the actual heisting in the book, I did that for. But there were the main like conclusion of the conflict, I couldn't do it for. I just couldn't. I'm gonna leave it there for now. We've only got a few books left and then we can come back and review. My Roommate is a Vampire, I really enjoyed. I don't know actually that Pretty Good is fair for that, because comparing it to the other books that are in this list, the other books that are in Pretty Good were better than that. And I'll hold my hands up. I said this in the wrap up that I discussed My Roommate is a Vampire in. I know it's not a great book. It's silly. It's, again, you have to sort of, I mean, you have to suspend your belief anyway because it's about vampires, but it's really silly. But I liked that. I think the silliness worked personally, and it just felt like a fun little not serious read, which I quite enjoyed. So I do feel like Pretty Good is a bit I mean, I enjoyed it though, but I think it feels more similar to the books in this level rather than that. I might change that because it was good. Fourth Wing I'm putting in meh. I'm currently reading the second book in that series. What is it called? I keep forgetting what it's called and want to call it Iron Fist, but that's the Marvel show, isn't it? It's called Iron Flame. I'm currently reading that, but honestly it's sat unread on my bookshelf for the past 3 days, I think, after reading about 200 pages of it. When I have finished that, I intend to do a whole video on the series because I have a lot of thoughts and opinions, and yeah, I'm just the more I think about that book, the more I dislike it and realize I mean, it might just be that it's not for me, honestly, but I know there's been a lot of split opinion on the Fourth Wing anyway, but for me that's quite an easy decision for it to go in meh. A Christmas Carol I think is also quite easy. I'm gonna put that in Pretty Good. It was short, easy to read for a classic, easy to read for a Dickens classic. Had a good message. It had the classic Dickens thing of comparing the rich with the poor and the differences in their lives that they had in Victorian England. It was funny at times. It was a decent read, you know. It wasn't Six of Crows, but it wasn't bad either. So let's review, because I feel like some of this might change. I'm gonna work from the bottom up, I think. So would not recommend. Summer Unplugged and Between the Vines were the two that I knew were going to be in there. I didn't think any other books were going to be in there, and I'm fine with leaving it that way. Meh. Foxglove, I think, it's actually a bit harsh for that to be in there looking back on it, because I don't think I disliked it as much as some of the other books in here. So I think I'm actually going to move Foxglove to okay but not great. Bob Mortimer gets his own category for this Satsuma Complex, that's fine. And I think all of these I'm absolutely happy with, actually. Having Dracula there, I'm okay with. I think at a push I maybe could move the Mad Woman's Ball into it, but I think I'm quite happy with it being in Pretty Good. So that is every book that I read in 2023 and how I feel about them now looking back. I'm surprised that I actually remembered a lot of them well enough to be able to do that. Because I did go through some months where I was just reading so much so quickly because I honestly didn't really have much else to do. So my memory of all of those isn't the best. I think for me and where I'm at the moment with my taste in reading, this feels fair. I think if I had done this like a midway through one, it would have been very different, because I was still very much in that romantasy, books that are being recommended on TikTok and YouTube, you know, the big books that everyone's recommending. I think I'm moving away from that a little bit more, because the more I read those books that are recommended a lot, the more I realise that I think they're just not the kind of books that I enjoy. I think this feels right for right now, but like I said, there are some of these books that I may potentially reread over this year. So it'll be interesting next year when I do another tier ranking, because I like tier ranking things, so I will definitely be doing this again next year. It'll be interesting to see how and if things change. Let me know what your Six of Crows books were this year. What were the top tier books for you this year? I would be really interested to know. And also I'd be really interested to know your would not recommend books, because I think everyone is always going to have very differing opinions on that, and they're going to have different reasonings for it, but I think it's great to sort of hear those discussions. So I hope you have enjoyed. This is almost like a year wrap up and sort of very quick review of all of these books. If you want more in detailed opinions or reviews of any of these specific books, please do just let me know. More than happy to spend some time talking about some books. I hope wherever you are having a great day and have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you soon. Bye guys.